Time is the judge you can't bribe because it never forgets the past. The past keeps a record of actions. And yes, history may be told by the victor, but the actions themselves are left in the records forever. Even if the story behind those actions are different, the actions themselves are well recorded. First example I'll give you today of this being true is the Watergate scandal. In June of 1972, 5 men were arrested for breaking into the Watergate complex in Washington, D.C. At first, it looked like a small petty crime, but the ties started to come together over time. At first, Richard Nixon, the president at the time, claimed no political involvement with the break-in to the Watergate complex. But the cover-up to Nixon's claim was very sloppy. There was witness tampering, bribing the burglars to stay silent, dodging the FBI by any means necessary, and Richard Nixon using his executive power to block any investigations by the FBI. Journalists from Time started connecting the dots. There were repeated coincidences in the story. There were inconsistencies between the burglars when they told their story. There were money trails and testimonies that didn't align with the actions recorded, and ultimately, what led to Nixon's compromise were the tapes. He completely forgot that he recorded the conversations with the burglars in the Oval Office. He forgot they existed. But once they were collected, Time didn't forget that those conversations were recorded, and it was used against him. The courts forced the release of those documents, and to this day, Richard Nixon is the only president to ever resign from office. He couldn't bribe the burglars enough money to keep the story straight. Couldn't bribe the judges from getting that evidence of those conversations. The authority of Richard Nixon intimidated the people around him, but only for 2 months. And then 2 months later, he was forced to resign from office. The deeper takeaway from Richard Nixon is that even when you bribe people, intimidate the other institutional arms of the government, delay your own demise, and cover up as much of your trail as you can't erase a record. Time is the judge you can't bribe, in other words, because denial becomes undeniable. The second example of time being a judge you can't bribe is actually a financial crime example. We're going to talk about the Lehman Brothers in 2008. What the standard once was that risk must be measured honestly. Debt must be repayable, the rating system must reflect reality, and homes in the real estate market must be bought on income, not ninja loans. No income, no job, no assets. What became negotiable in the moment, especially for the Lehman Brothers, who were the only ones who really got caught in this, was credibility. They started with ninja loans. Risk assessment, because they really outsourced it to other people that were just trying to get the loans across for a commission. Ratings themselves were bought. Leverage, financially, was stretched beyond the human limit. And reality was replaced with financial models that just didn't make sense. Stacking up a bunch of really bad loans into one A+ loan with a 92% credit score actually just led to the collapse of how we know loans to be. In 2026, the cost of getting a loan is so ridiculously high because of the consequences of people trying to bribe the chance to get more money on their commission. Once the bad loans were bundled in 2008, they were hidden and renamed to have a higher score. Those paper profits from commission stacked way higher than what the real value of each of those loans were. And honestly, for years, nothing happened because people were making way more money on their commissions, people got houses with no job or income or assets, and life seemed great on the surface because all of the ratings were through the roof. But as I argue, time is a judge you can't bribe because it never forgets the past. The verdict of people lying about these loans was a global recession. I grew up with many people I know's parents having to foreclose their homes, institutions like the Lehman Brothers being erased overnight, and a decade of downstream consequences for the real estate market to reemerge as a strong one. It wasn't because of one bad decision. It wasn't because of one bad loan. It was because of the system being rewarded for the now instead of the long-term health of its existence. The standards, in this case, were treated as flexible, but recognized the actions and said, no, we are going to all pay for this. And guess what? Our society and our financial system became a lot stricter, less moral, and had more consequences. The last example I'll tell you today might be you or me. I'll start with me. In my life, I dodged hard conversations constantly because I refused to take something on the chin when it didn't need a resolution. Everything seems fine when you push the hard conversations under the rug. There is no consequence in a present moment. And the longer you delay the conversation, the harder it becomes to have it. There are consequences that come from you not having the conversation sooner than later. For me, the hard conversations led to a loss in my own health. I'm not talking about a physical ailment, but I am talking about my mental health. I wish I had a conversation with so many people in my life, from friends to mentors to acquaintances earlier in my life. Now, I tell the truth as it is, because I would rather not leave something in the past that can be handled today. The longer you wait, the harder it becomes. That past moment will stick with you for longer and longer and affect your present moment in ways that you can't recognize. And if you choose to take it on the chin and have the hard conversation, you will benefit and so will they. When you have these hard conversations, you have a verdict, and that verdict leads to peace. The judge comes with a decision when you have the time back in your pocket. That verdict comes as the answer. In your life, you may push back a lot of conversations. The second you have the conversation around what you can do differently becomes the conversation that allows for time to give you a great verdict. Things that are stuck in the past won't be forgotten, but your actions moving forward will create a greater outcome. It always adds up when you have the hard conversation sooner than later. Your life becomes significantly better once you have a verdict. If time is the judge you can't bribe, at least make sure you have the verdict. And at the end of the day, you will have much more resolve because of it. Do as you must to make sure that time gives you the verdict that you want. The sooner you act, the sooner the verdict, and the better the outcome will be. You have it within you. I trust you. Thank you for watching. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.